Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are talking to Carl King, Mr. King. He's going to talk to us about being an entrepreneur, having just going through what is your interest and making it make money for you and how he became who he is. Thank you, Mr. King, for your time, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, there's about 100 different places and ways we could take this thing, and I want it to be as interactive as possible so that you can get the most benefit out of what we're doing and this conversation and this time. So you don't have to take yourself off of you don't have to show your video, but if you can take yourself off of mute, I'm going to ask 2 questions, and I want you to honestly respond. So first question is, what was the first business idea you ever had? What was the first business idea that you ever had? I'm going to mute myself. You have to take yourself off mute and respond.
You might have gotten the shy ones.
Go ahead, Damaris. So this is going to work best if you work with me. So first business idea you ever had, and you don't have to have done it. You don't have to have processed it. It could be an idea for a screenplay. It could be an idea for maybe a YouTube channel, some type of Instagram feed that you're going to creating a hair salon, becoming a particular industry, going into an industry. What was the first business idea you ever had, or maybe an invention? Anybody?
I'll share what the boys have said. One of our boys his business idea is sneakers.
Okay.
How to sell sneakers. And another one actually wants to create sneakers and actually do art on them. So there's 2 of them.
Okay. Thank you.
The
So
second
creating.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. What's the second one?
T-shirts. And just selling art.
Awesome. Selling art. This is these are interesting, and right where many of us are. So to be honest, most of us have at least one business idea. If Adriana were to if we were to dig down and she ask her to share, would you say you had at least one in your life? You've had a business idea?
Dig deep. Back when I was really young.
Yeah.
I think I was doing a lot of fitness. So I wanted to be like a personal trainer.
Sure.
And open up my own gym.
Yeah, I had one a few years ago, an idea. This was back when, I don't know if you all remember those LG headsets. They used to go around your neck, and I was going to create some. I was trying to work with some suppliers out of China and do a different kind of a take on that. Of course, that's before Beats, as well as AirPods, as well as Jabra, those Bluetooth headsets actually that I have on right now. Before that like really took off, they used to be around your neck, and then you had these little earbuds that you put in your ear. And yeah, I had somebody I went to a guy that does manufacturing in the area, and just kind of asked him like, what do you think? Is this a viable idea? And by the time he started breaking down like the amount of money it would cost and all the different things, it really let me know that my idea wasn't as sound as I wanted it to be. But what I want to say is that everyone has at least one idea of starting a business, of doing something, of taking control, right? Taking control of your life, taking control of your future, your destiny. And there's a difference between entrepreneurship and freelancing. So whereas I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on this idea that in order to be wildly successful, you have to start your own business and you have to build it out with 700 employees, and it's got to be this robust thing that this juggernaut like Amazon or Google or something like that. And there's something to be said, I think, for not just um, being an entrepreneur, but also being a freelancer. And so being a freelancer is you do the work, you work for different companies, and you get paid by those companies for the work you do. It's if you've ever heard of the word consulting, that's what that is, right? So you're a freelancer. You can have a business name, business license, and all of that, but you're doing work, one-off work, if you would, that you get paid for. And so I want to kind of differentiate between those two things, as well as just kind of like full-time or part-time employment. Most of us know about employment, right? Because that's kind of what we grow up either seeing or hearing or getting talked about in school, but not as much so about owning a business, starting a business, and building a business, either like an individual business that we are the product that we're selling, we're the company and all that other stuff, or as Jay-Z said, I'm a businessman. So we grow up hearing about being an employee, but not as much about running a business, being in business. And so there's two different paths that you can take. And a lot of people prefer the idea of having this company and having a lot of employees. But I want to also lift up this idea of doing work that you're proud of, and work that is kind of one-off work. And by one-off, I mean, for instance, one of the companies I run, I'm a singer, right? And so I'm the product. Someone calls me and they say, hey, I want you to come and sing for my wedding or for my funeral or for probably not their funeral, but I want you to sing for this person's funeral or for this particular event, right? We're going to have this really big party and I want your band to come and they're going to play at this party. It's a one-time thing, right? And you get paid one time for this thing. That's freelance work. But in addition to that, and freelance work can also be you writing for a newspaper or for a magazine, right? You write an article, you get paid one time for that article. That's freelance work. You can do that as an employee, or you can do that earning or running your own business and doing it that way. And so, in the examples that we had, what's the first business idea you ever had? You can do any of those things, either as freelance or as an entrepreneur. You can create sneakers and design them as one-off things, right? For individuals, create an Etsy shop or a eBay shop, right? Or just sell them through Twitter or Instagram or what have you, right? Or TikTok and take orders through that. Say, hey, this is the shoe that I designed. This is, a one-time thing. And you work for individual people and you create a business that way. Or you can get a team of people that are artists right? A team of people that you know, that you trust, that are going to make really cool art. And then you become the head of that organization and you sell shoes for them, and you basically become a distributor and an entrepreneur. You can do that with t-shirts, you can do that with art, all kinds of different things. But I'm here kind of to tell a little bit of my story and kind of share with you about entrepreneurship. But specifically, I told people that asked me to come today, I wanted to talk about the idea of nothing being lost, right? Nothing being lost. Oftentimes with conversations about, we have these weird questions we ask people. What do you want to be when you grow up? Right? That's a weird question. That's a really weird question. As if you're going to be that thing for 70 years and then die, right? As, as if we have the leisure and the privilege of working for one company for 50 years like they used to do. Now, my parents, they had that kind of experience. The company would hire you and you would work for them or work with that company for 50 years, and you get a pin and a ring, and they give you a nice little ceremony, and then you would retire, right? You would go and live your life, sit on the porch and drink chocolate milk or lemonade or whatever, and look at the people across the street and talk bad about them. That's how it used to be. But these days, having that where you do one thing forever just doesn't exist. And so there's this fear, I feel, when we ask kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's this terror. I know I've felt it growing up, where somebody would say, what do you want to be? And you feel like you have to label that thing, you have to name it, and you can't move from it, you can't change, you can't deviate. It has to be that thing. And so growing up, people would ask me, what do you want to be? And I would say, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a preacher, or what I want to be is a business person, or what I want to be is, and it changed all the time for me. There are some people, they're rare, but there are some people in the world that know what they want to be when they're 6 years old, and they just pursue that one thing for their whole life, and that's all they do. I mean, you look at Beyonce, right? She knew what she wanted to be as a teenager, and she did that thing, and she is one of the greatest in the world. Um, right? But those people are few. They're rare. They're the exception. That's why we look at them as exceptional. But as I was growing up, one of the things I saw modeled for me in my family was my dad would he had a number of businesses that he was involved in. And I mean, truth be told, he wasn't great at any of them. It wasn't like he was wildly successful at them, but I saw modeled for me this idea um, of not being tied to one employer and not living your life restricted in that way. He was a air traffic controller initially, and then there was this big deal that happened in the 80s. He lost his job, and as a result of that, he realized that he had to take control of his own future for himself. Um, can you all hear me? Everybody good? I can't hear if
Yes.
anybody's. And if you
No.
have any questions or you want to say something, you can use that raise the hand feature on this thing. You can type something in the chat if you want to. But yeah, so he grew up, and I grew up in that environment of my dad doing multiple different things, trying to. You see, my son is very unsubtle. Yeah, so yeah, I saw him. He ran a sign business, and he was decent at it. He was really a really good artist, really good sign painter, but people would take advantage of him. He would like negotiate with them, and I always asked him, like, why don't you get that in writing? He would, and to him, his idea growing up was if somebody agreed to something, then it was good. And this may be a nugget or a tidbit that you can take from this, but if it's good enough to agree on, it's good enough to get in writing. Period. Whether that's a haircut that you're agreeing on, or a lawn that you're cutting, or whatever it is, get it in writing. Get it in writing. Um, and so I saw him, he would negotiate with people like, I'm going to do this sign for $500 for the front of your store. And I'll have it delivered by whenever, right? So he would then go to our house, and he would use our garage, and he'd paint these signs, and then he'd have me or my brother up on the top of the roof on this shaky ladder, and he'd be on the other shaky ladder, and we'd be installing this sign. And then once we got down, got all this stuff, I would watch him sometimes go into the store, and the store owner's shaking their head, right? And I'm looking like, what is going on? And he would come out of the store sometimes looking sad. And it like really, really hurt to see the work, the effort, the energy that my dad would put into something, but to see that taken advantage of by people. And honestly, I would tell him stuff like, hey, you should sabotage that sign now that they got it up there, if they're not going to pay you for it. And I'd ask him, like, what happened? He'd say, they said they don't have it this week, or whatever. It was always an excuse that these store owners would give him. But I saw this business modeled for me, but I also saw these other parts of it. And so for me, seeing this stuff growing up, I was taking notes in my mind, like, this is good. Getting $500 for one sign, great, right? Having the freedom to do that in your garage, great. Being able to carve out the space for your family, tremendous. Getting messed around on the money, terrible. So how do you fix that part while also maximizing this other part? How do you have the freedom to decide what your schedule is going to look like, but also ensure that you're going to get paid every time, right? And that you're not going to get $300 instead of the $500 that somebody promised you. So when I was in high school, we were broke, and I would look around at these kids that had these nice shoes, and they would have nice shirts. They had all the name brand stuff, and I had, back then it was Payless. I don't even think there ain't many Paylesses around, but it would be off-brand, sometimes secondhand clothes, shoes, and I'd get. They would call it bullying these days, but folks would make jokes. They crack jokes about my clothes. They crack jokes about the way I looked, or what I wore. And in my mind, I'm like, I got to change this. This can't keep happening. I've got to find a way to rise up the social ladder, even if I don't have necessarily the money to dress right. I still have to change my situation. And so my first business in school was gambling for lunch money. This is not on the script, and you probably shouldn't do this.
How do you do that? No, I don't know anything about gambling. I didn't have, lunch money wasn't something they gave me. So I had a sandwich.
Yeah.
And my food. So how do you gamble? Please.
Well, okay, so I'd see kids walking out with pizzas and all the name brand, like we had a Pizza Hut in the school, and so I'd see these kids walking out with the expensive food, while I've got a tray lunch. And so then I started seeing these dice games, domino games, and card games, and my parents would give me $1 to pay for lunch every day. And I was like, okay, so if I take this $1, I can go to the card table, and we would go into a classroom, we'd play cards and play for money. But a lot of times I would lose. Some days I would win big, but a lot of times I would lose. And so I'd end up with no lunch and no money. And, and so I had to try, I started thinking like, this is not working for me. I've got to figure out something else, right? This is a business that's being regulated, right? There's teachers that were watching, the hall monitors, the police in the school, they were looking for folks that were doing stuff like me. And so I'm like, okay, so the risks of what I'm doing don't outweigh the benefits. The benefits are low. Like when I win big, and that's great, but usually I'm losing. And so I decided that I went to a store one day and I saw these packets of Fun Dip. They would call like lick a stick or Fun Dip. It was basically like a pack of Kool-Aid and this little stick candy. And the store was running a sale, 10 for $1. And I was like, if I buy 10 of these with my lunch money, $1, and I take them to school and sell them for a quarter each, I can make some pretty decent money. If I do this a few times, I can make money, I can eat lunch, and I can keep making money. So I started doing that, right? I have my parents drive me after church. They drop me off at the store, stop at the store. I'd buy a pack of lick a stick candy, a few packs, take them to school, buy them for a quarter, sell them for 25. I'm sorry, buy them for 10 cents, sell them for 25 cents. It got to where I had a backpack full of candy, right? I would have Snickers, I'd have Reese's, I'd have Skittles. I started doing crowd, I don't know what you would call it, right? You start trying to figure out what your clients want, right? So you're asking questions because they're buying certain things and then they're telling you, man, you don't have this, right? And so I'm taking notes. So as a good business person, you're listening to what your market wants, right? You're doing market research. They don't necessarily know you're doing market research, but a good business person is listening, right? So they would say, you don't have this particular thing. So I would buy more of that thing. And sometimes I would buy too much and I'd end up with more of it left over, right? And so then I would stop buying as much. You buy just a little bit. And then I started simplifying. I got to a point where I had so much stuff and people were spending forever looking through my backpack. The problem with that is, again, regulation, right? The teachers would see a whole group of people around my backpack and they'd be like, what are y'all doing, right? Um, so this is kind of like the beginnings of business. And for some people, this is where you are, right? You're selling t-shirts out of the back of your car or shoes online to your friends. And you're listening to them, you're getting some ideas, you're building some business savvy, and nothing is wasted. The stakes are low, but the rewards can be decent for you. And this is a great way to start. This is a great way to get into, dip your toe into business and entrepreneurship. I'm going to shut up for a little bit and let you ask some questions. What do you have? Thoughts, feedback on what we've talked about so far?
They're texting me instead of chatting. So let me read the text for a minute.
Read away.
All right. The first one.
Again, you can put it in the chat if you want to, and
Oh
I can
yeah, I
read
can
it.
do that.
Or I said they can, right? They can use
can,
the
right?
chat.
Well, found out someone's trying to drive and listen, so they're
Oh,
doing
okay.
like a podcast.
Okay, sure deal.
And then we still have the very, very quiet person. So how did you conquer your fear of being caught?
So part of that goes to personality, right? If you, my personality is, I'll prefer to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. again, that's a personal preference. Some people, and that's why you have to understand who you are before you start a business, or as you're working in a business. You have to know who you are, what your tolerance is for interacting with people, what your tolerance is for conflict, what your tolerance is for all of those things. I felt like when I started this particular business, I was willing to schmooze the teachers, right? I was willing to talk nice to them. And so I would talk to some teachers and I'd be like, hey, just give us 5 minutes before class, and just let us use the passing period. Or can we just have 2 minutes at the end of class? Because the students want this, whatever, it's going to make you better, right? So I would sell the teachers on the idea of being a part of so I made them a part of our business as opposed to making them enemies. So it's part of understanding that. And this is something that you're going to have to figure out, whatever you choose, whether it's regular employment, whether it's freelancing, or whether it's entrepreneurship and starting a business and then having employees. It is, all of this has to do with your people skills, being able to interact with people, being able to anticipate what their objections are, right? So some teachers would say, you've got all this candy in my classroom. I'd say, well, your students are going to be eating candy. It's just something that it benefits me. It helps me, to have a better lunch, whatever. So I would give them the benefits, the positives, and I would think ahead of what are they going to say? What are their objections, right? Some would say, well, if you do this in my classroom, I'm going to send you to the principal's office. I say, well, okay, well, we're going to do this outside. And some classes, they wouldn't let me come in. So that's just a really simple example. And I use this as something that you can probably relate to in your own current life. And then as you go forward in college, but by the time I got through doing that, I did that for some years and enjoyed it. It was good. It was fun for me, right? And it won me friends. And those are some of the other benefits, right, of being in business, is that people start coming to you. They start depending on you, whole lot of other things. But that's enough of that particular example. Any other questions or responses on that text that you had?
Could you share any of the downfalls of having the business, or like you saw with your dad, more than share a little bit more about when he came with a sad face? One of the students is sharing that they already tried to open up an account in Etsy, I believe, and they got hacked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned regulators, and if you would, industry regulators, and for that particular example, it was teachers. But what I was going to explain is later on, my dad got tired of doing the sign business. And so he started this company called Double Overdrive. And back in the 90s, this sounds like dinosaur years. But back in the 1900s, so he had this, he started this company called Double Overdrive. And what they did was similar to 5-Hour Energy, but it was in pill form. And they had a product called ephedra in it. If any of you know anything about the Food and Drug Administration, back in, I think, the late 1900s, early 2000s, they banned ephedra as a substance. So to your point, there can be a lot of devastation, a lot of sadness, heartbreak when you start a business and that business fails, either through something that you didn't do or something that you did, you didn't anticipate, because the federal government banned it. It devastated his company. I haven't had the opportunity, or I should say, not the opportunity, the misfortune of having my business hacked or what have you. But I have started a business that failed, when I was about 22. And I've got a whole list of things that I was going to talk about, but I'm going to skip to that because that was a question you had. Um, I went with my wife to Sri Lanka, which is a country on the southern coast of India. It's a little island. And while I was there, I was in a church environment, and that church, we would wear suits all the time, right? We would wear suits on Sunday, and we were in church so much, and every service we wore a suit, right? So Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, suits every time, right? And so I went to this island country, and while I was there, I had a suit, and I went into this tailor. They had these multiple tailor shops, and they're like, "We can make you a suit in about 2 days." And it's like, seriously, like make me a suit out of nothing? You can make me a suit? They say, yeah, you come in, you pick out the fabric you want, and we will tailor a suit specifically to you. I was like, a personally tailored suit, like that's something out of like a magazine or out of a movie or something. That doesn't happen to regular people. And after they got done tailoring, I think it costs like $80 for a personally tailored suit. Now in America, that same experience would cost you between $2,000 and $5,000 depending on the material. And so I was hooked, right? I was like, I can start a business, send fabric to Sri Lanka, and pay a good wage to people, maybe even $200, $300 for them to make the suit. I'll make the measurements in the United States. I'll source the fabric. I'll find the fabric, send it over, send over the measurements. They can make the suit, send it back. We'll be out $500, sell the suit for $1,000 to $2,000, undercutting the competition, and we'll have a business, right? I had a network of preachers that I was connected to. And so I started marketing. I started talking to preachers, and they're like, yeah, we're definitely in. We want one of those suits. We want a custom tailored suit. And so I flew to LA, went to the garment district. I had a friend of a friend made an introduction for me. I bought a box full of fabric, right? Multiple pelts or whatever you want to call it, of fabric. Flew those back to our house. I was set up, right? I thought I'd done everything. I got my logo. I had this beautiful Carl King clothing for men. This really cool design. I had like the thing that would go in your pocket. I was set up, I felt. The only thing that I didn't anticipate was the language barrier being so bad, right? So I don't speak Sinhalese, which is what many people speak in Sri Lanka. And as a result, when I would try to send packages over there, they would either get lost. I went through DHL. The USPS doesn't do that, and UPS doesn't do that. It was either FedEx or DHL. DHL, I lost, I think, 2 or 3 packages that I sent overseas, and it took like 30 days, and then I got them back. They were beat up, and they never did make it to their destination. And to your point, right, the devastation of having this dream, this idea, and then it failing for things that are out of your control is tough. And I think the biggest question is, what do? Do you stay down? Do you wallow in that dissatisfaction and in that discouragement, or do you get up and say, hey, we're gonna try again. We're gonna do something else. And my next business was wildly successful by comparison. We're at 6:45, so I'm gonna be quiet again and see if there are any other comments or questions.
I would say that you're hitting a point. We're talking. Sorry, we're so bad, and I apologize for being texting, chatting group that we are. But we want you to go through just a little bit more about how you get past that, because right now in our group, fear is huge. Like, you're hitting a couple points where they're going, oh, can he keep talking about that? Because that fear of doing something holds them back from actually doing what you're saying. Like, the courage you had, because a lot of them know that you have to have courage to say you're gonna go shopping somewhere, get this, that, do the package, wait, patience, all that. They understand that, but that fear to press that button in our group is just, everybody has that. Like, it's like we do a job application and I say, okay, go in, and I can't go for you. You gotta go in there and show your application, or talk to the person we connected you to meet and say, no, I can't make that appointment. So if you could speak a little bit more about that fear from your
Yeah, I
perspective.
will, definitely. So I will say that just about everybody that I've talked to has fear. Some people aren't honest about it. But I would say just about everybody that does anything in the world is afraid on some level. And I heard one guy say, or maybe it was a woman that said, um, the amount of scary or uncomfortable conversations you have are the determinant of the amount of success you have, the amount of uncomfortable conversations, right? So whether that uncomfortable conversation is with a potential manager, potential employee, potential employer, whether that uncomfortable conversation is with a family member, whoever that is, you have to embrace that discomfort, because in that discomfort is where you will find your breakthroughs, just period, right? In that discomfort. And I'll tell you, I mean, there are things that you can do to lessen the discomfort. There are things you can do to mitigate it, right? For instance, if you're going for a job interview, but you have a fallback, or you have somebody that is going to take care of you, think about that. So it lessens the stakes of you going and failing, right? So that even if you fail, you're going to be all right. So sometimes I've had to literally write, and I'll give you a brief example. I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I was working at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas in the early 2000s. So now we're in the 21st century. Woo. But I was working at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas in the early 2000s, and I had a good job. It was a solid job. I'd worked hard, gotten recognition, but I was kind of discontent. I felt like I'd hit kind of a ceiling at the point where I was. And I was looking around trying to figure, okay, so what can I do next? And I talked to a guy that said, you ever thought about starting your business and being doing lawns? I was like, no, I hadn't thought about it. And the more I started talking about it and thinking about it, the more I realized how much money was in just cutting grass, right? Just cutting grass. You cut grass, you take 15 minutes cutting a lawn, and you make $30 to $50. Boom, right? You do that 4 times in an hour. You just walk up the street and do that, you made $200. Boom, just like that, right? So thinking about that, it was like, whoa, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should look into this. And so the fear was, I can't just like quit this job that is making me money and dive into this other thing that has no guarantee and no hope. And so what I did is I kept my job at the Federal Reserve. And when I got off of work, I would put a lawnmower in the back of my car with a weed eater and a blower. And I would talk to people. I would knock on doors. I got my first lawn from a lady that rode the train with me from Dallas to Fort Worth, Texas. And so I started doing her lawn, and I would actually, I would go 2 doors down on each side, and knock doors and leave flyers. And I know I'm touching on a lot of things there. But we're talking about the fear, right? So my fear was if I if I dive into this thing full throttle, I'll lose the security and the safety I have. And so the way I dealt with that is, what do I want, right? Dreaming of what I wanted, also thinking about what do I need to do to get to that place that I want to be at? What do I need to do to prepare for that? What do I need to do? Okay, so the next thing I need is I need 5 lawns to make this amount of money to be able to maybe take a day off and do lawns for a day a week, right? So it's incremental. Oftentimes we think about this full throttle, like I'm going in, I'm just shutting down everything, I'm starting this business. And sometimes that's not the wise thing to do. Sometimes the wise thing to do is keep your part-time job, keep your 3 part-time jobs, and start on dreaming about the business. Start writing up a business plan. Go to the Small Business Administration and talk with somebody there. Talk with some people in your community. Talk with the people on this call about that business you want or that thing you want to do. Does that help? Does that answer your question about fear, or kind of address it?
Oh, yes, because it touches on that part where I think a lot of us do believe that. And I kind of said that they, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber and I'm going to make $1 million and it's done. Or I'm going to sell 3 things and I'm going to be, and I've met artists like that, that they think they're going to sell a $10,000 piece and be done for like months. And it's like, well, you got to, you know, change it, right?
Yeah.
You have to change your you kind of talked about change your product. You kind of talked about the marketing part, the flyers, and things are ever changing. But I did have another one. Hold on. So the question kind of tying in with the fear and then the marketing and things to ask, oh, did you ever partner with anybody and did you regret it or did that help?
That's a good question. Yes, I did. I partnered with in this lawn care business. I partnered with. I tried to partner with 3 different people, and each one of them set me back probably 2 to 3 years in my business. It was terrible. Each of the partnerships. One, I was trying to do a guy. Actually, 2 of them. I was trying to do a guy a favor. 2 different people. And another one, I listened to this guy talking as opposed to watching him work. He was extremely great talker and absolutely no application and no not a we weren't a good fit. I'll just say it that way. And so yeah, they all 3 ended up messing up my business in major ways. So partnerships can be great. I started a few years ago. I started a partnership with a guy, the company called Renewal Homes, and we started doing house flipping. And in this one, we were really clear. We went to an attorney, and just for like $300 or something. Oftentimes we think, an attorney, it's this huge amount of money, and you're going to be broke forever. But I think it was like $300. We sat down. The attorney wrote up papers that defined what our relationship was going to be, who was going to do what in the partnership, what we would do with the money that we made, and what we would do if we lost money, right? So very clear on everything up front. And that was a great partnership. We did really, really good work. I did the finance side, the business side, interacting with people, scheduling contractors, finding property acquisition, all of that stuff. And he did the repairs. And yeah, we had a really good partnership. Yeah. So to your point, partnerships can be tremendous oftentimes because people aren't clear from the beginning who's bringing what, and they don't have clear roles and clear understanding of what you're going to do with the money specifically, what are you going to do with the money? It usually breaks down to that thing, and who is responsible to do what. If it starts out by you being, if one person is more stronger, or has more money or more power in a relationship, that has to be delineated. That can be good, it can work, right? You can have 75% of the partnership, they have 25%, but you have to be clear on that up front. And again, I said this at the beginning, get it in writing.
No, that's great. It's perfect, like ending thought. Just want to know, do you want to say anything else before I stop the recording, or any last comments? I have a couple things after, but I'll ask you after recording.
No, I'm really excited to hear what questions they have or what thoughts they have. I've failed at multiple businesses, and I've succeeded at a few too. So I'm an open book. I would love to hear the questions. The biggest thing I would say is get out there and do something, whatever it is. Fail, mess up. It's not going to be the end of your life. And if you're going to fail when you're young, fail when you're in your teens and your 20s, so that you can have that experience, and understand that nothing is wasted. Whether you're working for somebody, try and soak up all the knowledge that you can wherever you are, so that you can move forward and apply that in your life.